G'day, fugitive Australian journalist Shane Dowling from the website and YouTube channel Kangaroo Court of Australia. Now, I've just published another article on the Robodebt NACC cover-up scandal, and it's well worth reading. Over the next few months, you're going to see a huge bowling ball put through the federal parliament, cleaning up a lot of people, not just the NACC staff, but also the politicians who are trying to protect the corrupt NACC staff. It's not just Paul Brereton, it's all the deputy commissioners and other staff, the CEO. The whole place needs to be shut down and rebuilt. But and that'll become obvious over the next few days because I'll be publishing more articles, and it'll become obvious that the bowling ball is going right through the whole joint because I'll be naming people you wouldn't expect who are already trying to protect certain people. But anyhow, I'll focus on this article at the moment. It's well worth reading because it deals with two key issues. The Inspector of the National Anti-Corruption Commission, Gail Furness, playing games with my Freedom of Information application, refusing to hand over documents I'd asked for, asking for an extension of time after it's already out of date, and also the fact that you wouldn't know the Attorney General's Department actually runs the Inspector's office. That she's got at least 4 staff that are employed by the Attorney General's Department that work for her, but their loyalty is obviously to the Attorney General's Department. And who heads that up? The Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus. So their loyalty is to him. And also you'll see in the article 106 services that the Attorney General's Department provides to the Inspector's office, which is basically everything, HR, accounting, IT, everything. They do everything as well as the staff. So the Inspector of the National Anti-Corruption Commission is not independent. And those staff are some of the people that the National Anti-Corruption Commission is meant to hold accountable. So the Attorney General has in effect got his eyes, ears, hands all over the Inspector's office, knows everything that's going on. Now, I'll read out the article. I'm not going to read out the whole lot. You can go to my website and you can look at the whole lot, and it's well worth doing because you can see that 4 pages of 106 different services that the Attorney General Department do for the Inspector, which shows it's not independent of government. Those staff and the people providing those services would be leaking like a sieve back to the government and back to government employees, back to the Attorney General. Any other articles titled, Inspector of the NACC, Gail Furness SE, breaks FOI laws, and her office is run by the Attorney General's Department and is published on Sunday the 3rd of November 2024. And it starts off, the Inspector of the NACC, Gail Furness SE, has up to 4 staff and at least 106 services outsourced to Attorney General Mark Dreyfus's Attorney General's Department, which scandalises the claim the Inspector of the NACC and the NACC itself is independent of government. If the Inspector of the NACC's office is totally compromised, which it is, then so is the NACC, given the NACC Inspector is a supposed watchdog of the NACC. On page 2 of a MOU agreement between the Attorney General's Department and the Inspector of the NACC, Gail Furness SE, it says that below, the Australian government has committed $5.4 million over 4 years from 2023 to 24 support the performance of the Inspector's functions under the Act. This will provide up to 4 staff employed by the Attorney General's Department and provided to the Inspector as support staff. Up to 4 support staff working for the Inspector of the NACC, Gail Furness SE, are employed by the Attorney General's Mark Dreyfus's Attorney General's Department, which means their loyalty is to Mark Dreyfus, not Gail Furness. How scandalous is that? And what about being independent of government? The Inspector of the NACC, Gail Furness SE, also tried a Swifty on Friday and sent me an email asking for an extension of time for my Freedom of Information request, which was already 10 days overdue, which puts Gail Furness SE in breach of the Freedom of Information Act, which is not a good look to say the least. Firstly, I'll deal with the fake independent of government claim about the NACC and Inspector of the NACC. Secondly, I'll deal with the sneaky Inspector of the NACC request for an extension of time, which is part of the government NACC cover-up attempt, and a follow-up from my previous article titled, NACC emails expose a big lie. Attorney General Mark Dreyfus is interfering with NACC FOI requests. In the previous article, I said, besides processing FOI applications, what else does the Attorney General's Department do for the Office of the Inspector of the NACC? Well, below is the answer, and it's very disturbing because they do everything. Memorandum of Understanding between the NACC and the INACC. And there's a link there so you can read the whole document. When reading this article, keep in mind that the Inspector of the NACC doesn't just investigate the NACC. The NACC Inspector would know what and when the NACC are investigating. How? Section 4 of the MOU between the NACC and Inspector of the NACC, as per below, says the NACC must give the Inspector of the NACC a copy of any summons they issue for the witnesses to appear and the reasons for it. And there's a screenshot of Section 4 in the article. Given the Inspector's staff are all employed by the Attorney General's Department, it would mean the NACC and INACC would be leaking like a sieve to the government staff they are meant to hold accountable. Memorandum of Understanding between the Attorney General's Department and the Inspector of the National Anti-Corruption Commission for enabling services, and there's a link there to the full agreement. Some examples of what the Attorney General's Department does for the Office of the Inspector of the NACC are everything to do with human resources, information technology, banking, budgets, records management, systems support, etc. 106 services in total, but they can increase that. It is the Attorney General's Department running the whole office for the Inspector of the NACC, except for the Inspector's role. It means Attorney General Mark Dreyfus has his eyes, ears and fingerprints over everything the Inspector of the NACC Gail Furness does, even before she does it. The NACC and Inspector of the NACC started operations in July 2023. It says on the Inspector of the NACC's website, this agreement outlines enabling services that will be provided to the Inspector of the National Anti-Corruption Commission, the Inspector, by the Attorney General's Department, establishing a clear service level and perimeters around support services to ensure effective performance of the Inspector's functions. Below are 4 pages of the agreement that outlines all the services provided. I published the whole list as it really drives home that the government is running the office of the Inspector of the NACC and have access to all the information in that office. When anyone says the NACC and INACC is independent of government, it is a lie. And I'll put a link to the article below this video on YouTube so you can go to that article and make sure you do. And just have a look at those 4 pages of services they provide, everything. As I said, banking, budgets, financial reporting, everything, system support, payroll, they do the lot. And they provide 4 staff as well who are employed by the Attorney General's Department. And I go on to say in the article, I wonder if someone in the AG's office drafted or edited the NACC Inspector's report on the NACC's robo-debt cover-up. As per above on page 4, it mentions editorial activities as a possible additional service. Apparently there's no corruption whatsoever in the Attorney General's Department, and they wouldn't leak any information to their mates in other government departments. So it's okay for the Attorney General's Department to run the Inspector of the NACC's office. Well, at least that is what the government want us to believe. Now I move on to the FOI request in the article, and I say, sneaky request by the Inspector of the NACC for an extension of time. I was sent the below email on Friday from the Attorney General's Department FOI team on behalf of the Inspector of the NACC. My FOI request to the NACC Inspector are managed by the Attorney General's Department. And you go to the article and you can have a look at that whole email. I'll skip over the email and I'll read my comments below, which outline the key facts. I say in the article, I emailed the above FOI request on the 23rd of August 2024 to the Inspector of the NACC, and the Attorney General's Department negotiated down the scope of my original request to what is above, and they agreed it would be okay. On the 10th of September, they said to me, the Inspector of the National Anti-Corruption Commission agrees to the revised scope, which is the scope in the above email. They also said, as we have only recently settled on the scope that is processable, I would like to request your agreement to extend the processing period for your request by 30 days. I am requesting this extension of time from you to ensure the department has sufficient time to process and finalise your request in accordance with the FOI Act. And they also said, if you agree to the requested extension, the new due date will be the 22nd of October 2024. However, the department will make every effort possible to provide a decision to you as soon as possible. But they ignored the 22nd of October date for a decision, which makes it a deemed refusal, and failed to notify me. That puts an Inspector of the NACC in breach of the FOI laws, which is not a good look, to conceal the truth from the public about what is happening in the NACC robo-debt cover-up. I am a journalist, which they know, and they know I'd report what they are hiding. They also deliberately put the go slow routine on it so they could publish the NACC Inspector's report first. Now they want me to consider delaying submitting an Information Commission review to the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, and want my support to file a Section 15AC extension of time to the Office of the Information Commissioner for a further delay until the 2nd of December 2024. The people playing the FOI games with me are staff employed by the Attorney General's Department, working in the Inspector of the NACC's office, and also staff in the FOI office at the Attorney General's Department, all of whom would report to the Attorney General Mark Dreyfus, not the Inspector of the NACC Gail Furness. So the question's got to be asked is how did all the politicians approve such a corrupt and dodgy setup? Now, as I already said, it's well worth visiting my website. I'll put a link to that article below this video on YouTube. Well worth clicking on it and read the full email, and you can have a look at those documents that show the full 106 services that the Attorney General's Department provide to the Inspector of the NACC's office. And it just shows what a scandal the whole situation is. And please share this video on social media, and please hit the like and subscribe button. I'll be doing follow-up articles and videos in the near future, so make sure you subscribe to my website, etc. And Kangaroo Court of Australia's independent media publish a website and a YouTube channel, and I'm 100% crowdfunded from viewers like yourself, so please support my PayPal account or Patreon account. You can donate any amount, $3, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30, $40, $50 a month, whatever suits your budget. It all helps out in a big way. And the link for the PayPal account and Patreon account will be below this video on YouTube and also on my website. Other than that, thank you for your time and have a good day.